Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's topic will be about art, about my relationship with it, and about kind of just talking a bit more about the purpose of this channel, I think, will be the scope of this one. I think for a lot of my life, I have been creating art, but not the kind that anyone could ever see. A lot of it was drawing and writing. Well, that was about all of it, actually. But I did a lot of drawing and a lot of writing, but I was always sad that so few people would ever see it. I mean, I grew up on the internet watching content made by everyday people, and, you know, it gets thousands and thousands of views on this platform. And yet, everything that I made, I was never able to get it to a larger audience, even though I dreamed of it. I don't think that it's because I was doing something wrong. I think it's just that I haven't really tried, right? I mean, it's a lot of work, and you have to really put a lot of time into what you do, and I've never really been able to retain that kind of focus required to reach a lot of people, right? Like, it takes work to get an audience, and it just drives me crazy. You know, like all the sketches that I do and, you know, all my writing, you know, the stories that I've written, I try and share them with anyone who, you know, will let me, basically. But, you know, I haven't really tried to put myself out there, I guess. So I think I wanted to do something a little more focused around that idea, because when I was drawing and when I was writing, you know, through my adolescence, I wished that it could be seen, but also it wasn't really always. When you make something for an audience, it needs to be cohesive, right? I mean, who wants to read like just a bunch of jumbled nonsense stories that I made up for fun? It doesn't have any overarching thing. So that's why I wanted to make this channel kind of thematically cohesive, right? I mean, on my previous attempts at content creation, I was trying like let's play content and, you know, like video game content, and I could never really settle on something. Nothing really seemed right in that, I guess. It was more the kind of content that I like to consume rather than create, I guess. And so that didn't work for me, right? It was, you know, like, okay, I kind of had this realization that the kind of content that I like to watch isn't necessarily the thing that I feel driven to create. I actually had a similar realization, and I want to mention this just because I don't really have too much to say, but it is relevant to the video topic. I had a very similar realization about music, actually. My father is a musician, a pretty talented one, I would say. And so, you know, I always kind of felt this push toward making my own music, but I was just never really very good at it. I don't know. Maybe I just needed to keep trying, and maybe I'll pick it up eventually, but I did try. I actually tried quite a lot, but it just never really worked out, which is, I guess, kind of unfortunate, but I just don't really have the energy to just keep pushing myself that way when I have so many other mediums to go for that I do have more natural talent in. I recently listened to an album made by someone who I would say is pretty similar to me in a lot of ways. It was very emotionally expressive, and it really struck a chord with me. And I think I am just really happy that I found an example of someone expressing a lot of the same thoughts, feelings, emotions, and experiences as I would want to in my music. I haven't really gotten to hear very much music in my life that I can, like, really fully project myself onto. Most of the time subject matter in music is dealing with things that I've never really felt personally, but it was really amazing to get to experience art that clicked with me on such a personal level. I just wanted to talk about that. Kind of a tangent in the middle of the video. Maybe you'll hear the audio change a little bit. But anyway, back to what I was saying about YouTube. But another thing, and this is, I think, more widely applicable to the subject of art in general, is that in order to kind of satisfy this itch that I've had, I needed to focus on creation over perfection, right? Like, the idea is kind of to make and share without focusing on creating a final product first, right? That's why I think video games weren't a good outlet for me, because it wasn't really creation of art, in my opinion. It wasn't really a creative outlet. It just felt like a job, I guess. It's like a job if you want gaming to be a job. And like, if you want that, that's cool, but that's just not how I like playing, I guess. And if that's not what you're trying to do, then I think it just kind of doesn't work. There's other things on my old channel that are like creative outlet stuff. Like there was that little science series that I was gonna do, where I was gonna do like wacky topics talking about nerd shit, I guess. But it just also became work for me. And I was like, well, I think at the end of the day, it was just me trying to recreate something that I'd seen other people do before. And it wasn't the right thing, and so it felt like work. You know, like I think that there must be a correlation there, I think, with like what's creatively satisfying and what's like energetically draining, I guess. See, this format that I'm doing now for my videos doesn't feel like work, partially because I intentionally chose a low effort format, but also it feels relieving to make videos. Now it's more about getting around to it, but like when I finally am working on them, I'm relieved, because it feels like I'm finally picking away at, the progression of this larger piece of art that I'm making that is my sort of YouTube channel as a whole, like as an entity. And that is creatively satisfying for me. I also really loved writing. I loved it. And my English teachers always complimented my writing and said I had a great voice and was very creative. Whenever in my high school classes that I got to decide, what to write, I would always, write a story of some kind, and I loved it. But that medium is sort of just, it clashes with my neurology and my drive for perfection, because a story is one of these things that's just infinitely revisable, right? You know, when you draw something, at the end of the day, the most you can do on it is to get the picture that you have in your head out, right? What you're imagining, just there. It's self-contained. You know, it has borders, and it has intentions for what you want to show in it. And you know, you can add details and you can fuss over things, but the scope is going to stay almost the same. But with writing is like the ultimate like scope creep art form. You know, you start out with writing, and then it becomes world building, and then you're trying to explain some elaborate set of events that you've thought up, and you have to fill in all the gaps, and you can fill it with anything, like literally fucking anything, and there's no like constrained borders to writing. It's just an empty page. And I think that's why I had so much trouble committing to it, because it felt like there was always like a next thing. There was almost too many next things that I wanted to do, and like my plans would get backlogged with my actual progress. I would spend more time planning than I would writing the actual prose. I spent years planning, you know, like years just thinking over, and you know, maybe writing like little what's it called, like a short little perspective. There's a specific word, I'll look it up and put it on screen. And so that's just been another sign for me that I needed to try and decrease my scope, right? Try and decrease the scope of what I'm doing, something that I can just do a little bit of it at a time and not really plan ahead too much. I do plan ahead. I have a whole text document that I'm reading notes off of, where I've written out all kinds of thoughts that I've had about the different topics that I want to make videos for. But at the end of the day, you know, unlike writing, recording these does not take very long. I mean, right now, I'm running out of things to say, and I'm at 14 minutes of raw audio. And that's not even cut down. It doesn't take that long. And that's why I'm really happy with what I'm doing here. How many places has this video been to? Like, the file. Did it leave behind something? The whole earth is crawling with these things. Fragments of video stored in cache. Imagine if all the little caches left behind on all the computers and servers in the world were all put together. Data fragments with no individual meaning at all added together to create a new existence. A new art. Is it alive within the machine? Does it have meaning? Millions of minutes of fragments all coming together to make an uncoherent whole. The world's largest art piece, which has no artist, but rather millions of unwitting contributors whose work all comes together in fragments removed from their context. It is beautiful and meaningful despite no meaning. The beauty of this has dawned on me. It blooms in my mind like the morning flowers. So what is the purpose of this channel exactly? Well, I've been thinking about it, and what exactly, I want the scope of this to be and what it's supposed to be. And I've come to describe it as a catalog of things that I think about a lot. My brain is like thinking all the time. I'm going to talk about that more in my next video. The big A, anxiety. Thinking all the time, and so I need to like offload the conclusions that I come to, right? I mean, my brain only has so much space. And so I gotta offload some of the things I'm thinking about. Don't have to keep it in my head, Now that I've talked about this, like, I can not have to worry about thinking about it, because I have this video on my channel that I can look at and be like, oh yeah, that is what I think about this topic. And maybe I will listen to something and realize that my thoughts on it have changed. And it kind of gives me a much more grounded before and after of like my way of thinking about things. This is something that has also come up for me recently when I was reading some like really old like diary journals from when I was a little kid. And I realized like just how much different my thinking was, and how differently I interpreted the world around me than I do now. And I guess I kind of wished that I had more examples of that, of me just talking candidly about the things that I think and I feel. In the future, I can decide that I either still agree with that or not. And I guess it just kind of gives me a benchmark for how far I come cognitively and intellectually and stuff. So that's kind of what it is. Obviously, people do take on big projects and stuff, and I'm sure it does end up being very satisfying to conclude it, but I've just never been able to manage it, and I'm still young, so, maybe I'll start some kind of creative project within, the near future of my life, and it'll be something big, and I'll complete it eventually, but so far, I don't really have that experience, and so I don't really know what it feels like to have that accomplishment, I guess. I feel like I've never been able to create a self-contained package of something creative to share with the world, right? Something that I can, bundle up and say, here, look at this. And it's something cohesive and thought-provoking and entertaining and or whatever. And I don't really have anything like that. I have so much creative energy that has been expended through my life, and I guess just not very much to show for it. Yeah. I mean, there's counterexamples. There's some things that I've participated in creatively that have been very successful, but nothing really like of my own, I would say. That's like all completely my own original generation of work, I guess. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for this channel to be. A self-contained package of creation. If that makes sense. Even if it's not anything very entertaining, I would hope that it's maybe thought-provoking and thus has some kind of value to someone other than me, right? That's the hope, at least. Okay, I think I've run out of things to ramble about, so thank you so much for listening. I wanted to do a bit of a lighter topic before I delved into the next sort of mental health topic. And then I want to kind of intersperse the gravity of the topics that I talk about here, right? I mean, because my uploads are so spread apart, I want there to be a good mix of, positivity and of more serious things. Balance is always good. Remember to love yourself. And tell me in the comments one thing you did creatively recently. What did you make? It can be any form, any medium. I want to know what kinds of things people are doing. If it's the same thing as a bunch of other people are saying, I'm being very optimistic about the number of comments, but this is an engagement call to action. They're supposed to work. I don't care. Tell me anyway. I want to know. Tell me a little bit about it. Alright. Take care.